I remember the exact smell of that afternoon, like crushed peonies and panic. I was 28 pounds of lace and hope, pressed against the garden doors of the vineyard pavilion, my veil catching on the rough wood as I peered through the crack. The sun was low and perfect, turning every leaf into stained glass, and there they were, 2 empty chairs in the front row. Blush ribbon, peonies the color of a bruised heart, tiny place cards written in calligraphy that cost more than most people's rent. Mom. Dad. Empty. I had checked my phone every 45 seconds for the last 6 hours. No running late text. No traffic on the 101. Nothing. Just the same silence I'd grown up swallowing like medicine. I was 34 years old, and I still believed that if I was good enough, quiet enough, successful enough, they would finally see me. I had built entire cathedrals of hope on that belief. And in one heartbeat, watching those 2 chairs stay empty while the string quartet tuned their instruments, every stone of every cathedral came crashing down. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just felt something inside me go very, very cold. You need to understand who I was before that day. My name is Nora Keller now, but I was born Nora Harper, the spare daughter. The one who came out first, and then spent the next 3 decades being reminded that the sequel was the masterpiece. Elise arrived 3 years later with cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass and a scream that sounded like a movie trailer. From that moment on, the spotlight belonged to her and the shadows belonged to me. I learned early how to make myself small. I learned that straight A's were expected. But Elise's first commercial at age 6 got a party with a bounce house. I learned that when I won the national coding championship at 16, Dad looked up from his newspaper long enough to say, "That's nice, sweetheart," before turning to Mom and asking if Elise's new headshots were ready for the agency. I learned that love in our house was a spotlight, and I was never allowed to stand in it for long. So I stopped asking. I paid my own way through Stanford. I built a career writing security systems that protect billions of dollars for companies you've definitely heard of. I became the daughter who never needed anything. And then I met Caleb. Caleb, who looked at me across a crowded coffee shop while I was debugging code on my laptop and said, "You have the most expressive eyebrows I've ever seen." Caleb, who listened to me talk about encryption algorithms like I was reciting poetry. Caleb, who when I finally told him about growing up in Elise's shadow, didn't try to fix it. He just pulled me close and whispered, "You were never second place to me." When he proposed on a rainy pier in Seattle, knees soaked, ring held out like an offering, I said yes before he finished the question. I thought that would be the moment everything changed. I thought a wedding would finally force them to see me. I was so stupid. The planning was its own kind of torture. Every decision became a referendum on worth. Mom sighed over the venue I loved, an intimate vineyard 2 hours north of LA, and said, "Well, it's rustic. Elise will want something grander, I'm sure." Dad asked if we were sure we wanted to spend money on real flowers when Elise's future wedding would need peonies flown in from New Zealand. Elise herself sent me Pinterest boards for inspiration that were just mood boards of herself photoshopped into bridal gowns. But I kept going, because this was my day. My love. My turn. I sent their invitations myself. Thick cream cardstock, gold foil, the whole ridiculous production. I paid for certified mail because some terrified part of me already knew. I watched the tracking update to delivered. I got the read receipt on the email. I even texted them a week before. "Can't wait to see you both. Front row is reserved with your names on it." Crickets. The morning of the wedding, I still checked my phone while the makeup artist blended concealer under my eyes. I refreshed my messages while the photographer arranged my veil. I smiled for getting ready photos while my stomach tried to eat itself. And then I saw the lipstick, tucked behind the rose arbor where the ceremony would be, half hidden under a napkin like someone had tried to hide evidence. Mom's exact shade of Chanel Rouge Allure. The one she wears to premieres. The one she'd been wearing in the selfie she posted from Elise's latest red carpet 2 days ago. They had been here. They had come early, taken one look, and left. I don't know how long I stood there staring at that coffee cup. Long enough for the wedding planner to find me and gently say, "It's time." The walk down the aisle is a blur of white noise and camera flashes. My heels sank into the grass, and I counted every step like I was walking to my own execution. I kept my eyes on Caleb. Only Caleb. The man who was waiting for me with tears in his eyes, and a smile that said I was his entire world. We said vows I'd written at 3 a.m. 6 months earlier, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the ring. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Caleb kissed me like he was sealing a promise nothing could break. For exactly 4 minutes, I believed love could fix anything. Then came the father-daughter dance. The DJ's voice was cheerful, oblivious. "Let's get Nora and her dad out here for their special song." The spotlight hit me like a prison searchlight. 140 faces turned. 140 pairs of eyes flicked from me to the empty chairs and back again. The sympathy was worse than anger. It was pity. Poor Nora. Always the afterthought. I was going to throw up in my peonies. And then Tom, Caleb's dad, stood up. He was wearing the same navy suit he'd worn to his own retirement party. The one with the tiny barbecue sauce stain on the lapel he refused to get cleaned because it's character. He walked straight through that spotlight like it didn't exist, held out his hand, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I'm not letting my girl dance alone tonight." My girl. He called me his girl. He didn't know the song. He didn't care. He just held me close and swayed while telling me stories about Caleb learning to ride a bike, about the first time Caleb brought me home for Sunday dinner, and Tom pulled him aside and said, "Son, don't screw this up. She's special." By the time the song ended, I was sobbing into his shoulder, mascara be damned, and the entire garden was crying with me. I thought that was the worst moment of the night. I was wrong. Later, when Caleb and I were stealing a minute alone near the cake, my phone buzzed against my thigh. I'd sewn pockets into my wedding dress, because of course I did. I was still me. 3 messages from Elise. "Mom and Dad are devastated. They're telling everyone you forgot to invite them. Fix this, Nora. My engagement shoot is next month and this drama is not the aesthetic. Also loving the peonies. Saving that florist contact for my wedding winking face." I stared at the screen until the words stopped making sense. I had the receipts. I had the proof. I had spent 34 years making myself small so they could feel big, and they had weaponized my wedding day to protect Elise's future spotlight. Caleb read over my shoulder. His entire body went rigid. "We're leaving," he said. "Right now." We didn't do the grand exit we'd planned. We just slipped out a side gate, climbed into the Mustang, and drove until the vineyard was nothing but taillights in the rear view. I rolled the window down and screamed into the night until my throat was raw. The honeymoon was supposed to be healing. 2 weeks in a house on the cliffs of Maui, nothing but ocean and each other. It almost worked. Almost. But the second we landed back in Seattle, the siege began. Mom called first. Voice trembling with rehearsed devastation. "We never got an invitation, Nora. How could you be so thoughtless?" I was still jet-lagged, still sunburned, still wearing the lei Caleb had put around my neck at the airport. I opened my laptop and pulled up the postal tracking while she cried. Delivered March 9th at 11:07 a.m. signed for by Richard Harper. Silence. Then the pivot. Well, maybe it got lost in the mailroom. Dad's email came next. A masterpiece of condescension about family unity and supporting your sister's rising star, and how I needed to post a public apology before I damaged Elise's brand. Elise herself sent a 37-second voice memo at 2:14 a.m. that began with, "You have always been jealous of me," and ended with, "My wedding will be perfect and you will not ruin it." For weeks it was psychological warfare. Aunts I hadn't spoken to in a decade suddenly needed to check in. My mother's Pilates instructor left me a Facebook message about forgiveness. Even my high school math teacher somehow got dragged into it. I stopped sleeping. I started documenting everything, screenshots, call logs, certified mail receipts, like I was building a legal case. Because at that point, it felt like one. Caleb watched me come apart for exactly 21 days. Then one night he found me on the kitchen floor at 3 a.m., surrounded by printed emails, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't tell me to let it go. He just sat down in the wreckage with me, pulled me into his lap, and said, "You don't owe them a stage to perform their lies on anymore. You owe yourself peace." The next morning, I built a timeline. 68 pages. Every text. Every email. Every desperate attempt to include them. Every cruel dismissal. I attached it to an email address to every relative, every mutual friend, every person who had ever been used as a flying monkey. Subject line. The truth about why those chairs were empty. Body. Here are the receipts. Literally. I hit send and turned my phone off for the first time in my adult life without terror that I was missing something important. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. Aunts texted apologies at 4 a.m. Cousins who had RSVP'd yes to Elise's wedding suddenly had prior commitments. My great-aunt Ruth, 92 years old and sharper than most people half her age, called just to say, "Your mother always was a narcissistic piece of work. Good for you, baby." Elise's wedding, originally planned as the main event my parents had been emotionally saving themselves for, started hemorrhaging guests. And then came the email that finally, fully, irrevocably broke me open. Elise attached a 47-page mood board. Our exact vineyard. Our exact floral palette. Blush and ivory and eucalyptus. Our exact arch draped in wisteria. Our exact vintage Mustang getaway car. Even the same 3-tier lemon elderflower cake. The subject line read, "Save the date 2.0. The wedding we should have had first." At the bottom, a forwarded message from my mother. Now we can finally have the daughter's wedding we always dreamed of. Without the disappointment. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just closed the laptop and walked into our bedroom where Caleb was folding laundry. "They didn't just skip my wedding," I said, voice flat and hollow. "They boycotted it. They decided my love story was the dress rehearsal that needed to be erased so Elise's could be perfect." Caleb looked up slowly. The shirt in his hands fell to the floor. Then he opened his arms and I fell apart. 7 months later I was 38 weeks pregnant, swollen and radiant and furious, when the final offer came. A certified letter from my father's law office. Inside, a check for $10,000 and a note in Elise's handwriting. For travel, a new dress, and therapy if you need it. Just show up. Smile for pictures. Let mom walk you down the aisle too, so it looks like we're all one big happy family. We'll tell everyone you had food poisoning last time. My presence had a price tag. I stared at that check for a long time. Then I took a pen and wrote across it in big block letters. "My love is not for sale." I mailed it back uncashed with no note. Elise's wedding day came and went. From what I heard later through the family grapevine that no longer included me, half the chairs were empty. The photographer kept asking where the sister of the bride was. My mother spent the reception cornering guests and hissing that I was mentally unstable. The cake was lemon elderflower, but apparently it tasted like ash. I spent the day hiking Hurricane Ridge with Caleb, 8 months pregnant, and laughing as marmots whistled at us from the rocks. My water broke 2 days later, while I was making pancakes. Our son was born on a Tuesday morning, red-faced and perfect, with Caleb's eyes and my stubborn chin. We named him Finn. Finn Thomas Keller, after the grandfather who danced with me when my own father wouldn't. 2 years passed in a blur of sleepless nights and first steps, and the kind of love that doesn't come with conditions. Our house in Olympia is filled with photos. Finn covered in spaghetti, Tom teaching him to fish, Linda kissing his cheeks until he shrieks with joy. There are no pictures of my parents. There are no pictures of Elise. And then, on a quiet Thursday while Finn napped on my chest and the rain painted rivers down the windows, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. A text. "This is your mother. I know you had a boy. You can't keep my grandson from me, your own flesh and blood. This is cruel. This is unforgivable. Blood is thicker than water, Nora. Call me." I read it once. I looked down at my sleeping son. His tiny fist curled against my heart, his lashes fluttering with dreams only babies have, and felt absolutely nothing for the woman who wrote those words. No guilt. No longing. No last desperate thread of hope. Just the deep, steady certainty that I had already given them every chance they were ever going to get. I blocked the number. I kissed the top of Finn's head and whispered into his soft baby hair the truest thing I know. Some doors, when you close them, stay closed for a reason. And some people never deserve to walk through them in the first place. Caleb found us there an hour later. He didn't ask what the text said. He just wrapped his arms around us both and held on until the rain stopped and the light turned gold again. That was the day I finally stopped waiting for people who were never, ever coming. And in the silence they left behind, I built a life so full of love it drowned out every echo of their absence. If you've ever had to walk away from the family you were born into to protect the one you chose. If you've ever realized that love isn't something you audition for, something you earn by being smaller, quieter, less. Tell me in the comments. Was there a moment you finally closed the door? I read every single one. And if this story cracks something open in you the way that day cracked me open, share it. Some truths are too heavy to carry alone. I'll see you in the next one.